Check, check. Good morning. We're going to commence with our meeting in just a few moments. If you'd like to be seated so that we can get a brief count, that would be helpful. Thank you. We still have a couple moments before start time. If there's anyone out in the narthex, would you please encourage them to come in?
Go ahead.
Check, check.
Go ahead, Beth. Keep talking.
Thank you. Good morning.
Go ahead.
This meeting has been called by the Dufford Terrace Board as a special meeting. Our sole objective today is to amend our bylaws, to vote on a new set of bylaws. If we do not have a quorum of 50 people, the meeting will be adjourned and we will reconvene on January 8th. At that time, if there is not a quorum of 50 people, however many people are accepted as a quorum. So we're waiting another couple of minutes just to see if, by the miracle of miracles, a few more people show up and we meet our quorum. Are we good? Butch says we're locked in.
You're good.
Okay.
And if anybody signs on or leaves questions in the chat, I will interrupt and tell you them.
In the event that we do not have a quorum, we are still going to open the meeting. We will acknowledge that we do not have a quorum. We will close the meeting, and then we will move on to open the floor for questions. The only topic to be discussed today will be the bylaws. I understand that there are some concerns. There should be concerns. You are all members of the Dufford Corporation as you are members of St. John's, and you need to be clear on what the changes are going to be and why they're going to be made. So we are going to open the floor for some questions, and happy to try and relieve your concerns. But the official vote will not be held at least if we do not have a quorum, it will not be held until January 8th. Bob, are you counting? Is someone counting officially? I'm sorry, Roger, what was that? 40? All right, I'm going to officially open the meeting. Let us open the meeting with prayer. Direct us, O Lord, in all our doings with your most gracious favor, and further us with your continual help, that all our works, begun, continued, and ended in you, may glorify your holy name. We commend to your care those we provide for at Dufford Terrace. Give us strength of purpose and concern for others, that we may create here a community of justice and peace, where your will may be done. We ask that you guide us as your faithful servants, and ask that you fill us with wisdom and strength to know your will and to do it. We pray in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. So the meeting is officially opened. We need to acknowledge that we do not have a quorum. We will close the meeting and reconvene on January 8th. It's the second Sunday in January. We will convene after the 10 o'clock service, much like we are doing. At that point, we may have a Zoom in place. Right now, we are on YouTube. But we will be reconvening on January 8th. Thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Question. Unable to find the original bylaws.
That will be addressed.
Bylaws say for a quorum.
I'll be happy to address that after we close the meeting.
Because we're still functioning under the original bylaws.
We are still functioning under the original bylaws. Do I have a motion to close the meeting?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor of closing the meeting? So moved. Meeting adjourned. The original bylaws. We do have the original bylaws. We are willing to share them with you. However, I want you to know that they don't look anything like the new bylaws. The original bylaws were created in 1972, 50 years ago. Things were a lot different 50 years ago. When we tried to update the original bylaws, Attorney Agresti came back to us and told us we were not serving ourselves to do that, that he wanted us to use the nonprofit corporate bylaw template, which is why everything looks so different. There are things that had been eliminated because of prior laws that no longer hold. There are a few things that were added, such as electronic meetings and capabilities, because of things currently in place. And the template that we were given is the template that is accepted by legal authorities for nonprofit corporations. For the next meeting, we'll be happy to share those old bylaws. They are available, and we don't have any reason not to share them. It's just that they were so different, there wasn't a clear comparison to be had between the two of them. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
One of your dates is wrong, though. It wasn't 1972. It was 1982.
The bylaws, the original bylaws state that they are following the nonprofit corporate laws of 1972. So those laws are 50 years old.
It didn't come into existence until the early 80s.
Okay, thank you for your correction.
I have documentation.
That's fine. I believe our historian, Bob Schlafman, also has it. Just so you know, until the bylaws are approved, the quorum is a presence in person of 50 members, which we do not have, and an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the quorum is needed to approve any change. If there are 50 people, that means we need a number of 34 affirmative votes. However, under the current bylaws, it does say that if you do not have a quorum at the first meeting, you will move to a second meeting. At that second meeting, the number of people in attendance will be accepted as a quorum. Now, we're not trying to straddle things here. There are certain things that are very clear in the original guidelines, such as who needs to be present for a quorum. And we try our best to hold to that. There are other things in the original guidelines that were never anticipated, such as a Zoom meeting. And it is for that reason that some of the things in the new guidelines are very different. And we're not going to try and straddle that fence and say, but the original guidelines say this and the new guidelines say that. We're not here to be contentious. We're here to update the bylaws and to follow the law. A couple of things that were added to the new bylaws are the inclusion of an electronic or hybrid meeting where we can use Zoom without problems. In the new bylaws, if you've looked at them, you'll see that there are rules for those electronic meetings, how you're able to count votes, how you're supposed to hold up those Zoom meetings so that it's all on the up and up. Within the new bylaws, the quorum remains at 50. We realize that that's high. We talked with the attorney. He does not feel it good to lower that number because by law then you're compromising the membership and it could be challenged. So we are upholding the same 50 quorum. The number of people, or the number of special meeting attempts has risen from 2 to 3. Currently, because it's at 2 in the current bylaws, we can do one more meeting and call it a done deal. In the new bylaws, we will be allowed 3 meetings, and at the 3rd meeting, we will hopefully have a quorum, and then it will be a done deal. That's to try and encourage the knowledge of the meetings, the questions getting answered, and the good outcome. Another thing that you're going to see in the new bylaws has to do with the composition of the board. Under the current bylaws, it currently asks for 16 directors on the board. That is 13 elected by the congregation, 2 pastors of St. John's, and the church council president, all of whom are voting members. Under the new bylaws, we're moving to 15 directors. We're moving to 13 elected by the congregation, that remains the same, 1 senior pastor of the congregation, and the council president shall be a non-voting member. The reason that that was done is because in recent history, the council president isn't always present at all of our meetings. If he or she is considered a voting member, that increases our need for a majority of directors at a meeting to conduct business. We cannot conduct business if our directors are not present. So that pulls us down 1 member and gives us 1 more seat that we do not have to necessarily fill in order to conduct day-to-day business. Is there any concern over that? Would you like to comment on that? Diane?
I think an attempt could be made to have the council president there. I mean, like Zoom, like you're saying it's going to go to Zoom.
Zoom is available at every meeting. The council president and any member of our board of directors can join in by Zoom. That Zoom link is available. We meet monthly on a specific day. We meet the 3rd Tuesday of every month. That does not change except in the month of December. So that information is always available, and our directors are welcome to join by Zoom. And we do have directors joining by Zoom.
So you're feeling that a council president,
We do not feel that the council president's information and knowledge is not applicable. We just feel that because historically, over the past 10 years or so, generally the council president of St. John's does not attend frequently. But yet we are still held to a higher majority of the board who need to sit at a meeting and make decisions. And the fewer of the people who are there to sit at the meeting could negate our meeting.
have you ever follow up to the same thing? I'm a member of a volunteer action type work within the community, whatever, but they've looked at it that we actually, every other month, change the day of the meeting.
No, we do not do that, and I do not believe.
I'm just saying, to think, what if someone does have, they do that because several of them have the same commitment in their life on the same day every week. So at least every other month, that person gets to attend half of the year's meeting.
Historically, we have found that people build their lives around the Dufford board meeting, and we don't want to change that for those who already have. It's been that way forever. I mean, there has always been a set meeting date. I think we would be shooting ourselves in the foot to try and change that up. One of the other things that I know there is a concern over is that currently you are allowed one member at large on the board. We have been advised by Attorney Agresti that we should increase that. The new guidelines are going to say we will allow up to 4 members at large. A member at large means that you don't have to be a member of St. John's in order to be on the board of directors. I understand this is a concern, but Attorney Agresti also tells us that we do need to have a full complement of our board. And if we cannot get that number within the members of the church, it's standard practice to allow others who are not members of the corporation to join the board. This is not uncommon on any board, and especially on nonprofit boards. We have limited it to 4. It's by no means a majority, but I know there are concerns about that, and I'm willing to hear what you want to say.
Keep in mind, too, that those members at large still have to be voted on through the congregation.
Thank you, yes. Those members at large will need to be voted on. That brings up a good point. We are going to be coming up to an annual meeting where we will be voting on new members for the Board of St. John's. Again, the board will provide a slate. That slate will be on your ballot at the annual meeting. The floor may nominate anyone. The board provides the slate. The floor nominations are open to anyone. So that doesn't limit us. Any of you who want to be on the board are welcome to be on the board. If there are members at large who would like to be on the board, you as the congregation must vote that they are allowed on the board. The whole point of this being, we need a board. We need a full complement of board members. And if we are not able to get that full complement within our numbers, within the church, we need to have resources. That's where the members at large come in. Are there any questions?
I have a question from the booth. God, from the booth? No, just kidding. So my question is for the members at large, and actually for our current board, it's me, Bob, I'm in the booth. Our current members, is there like almost like not a list of requirements, but like, I know at the museum, there are certain things that we want in our board members, so almost like a job description for the board members, especially for the at-large ones who aren't voting members of St. John's. Or is that something that we could consider possibly?
Well, within the bylaws, it talks about ethics, it talks about intent of the board, it talks about being a care ministry, and that our board members need to align with that. So we would certainly attempt to have anyone who is going to be on our board align with the mission of Dufford Terrace, the fact that it is a care ministry. We are concerned with all of our residents and our tenants, and that is the bulk of what we do is for the benefit of Dufford Terrace. Now, we wouldn't randomly accept somebody who has no interest in the care of our tenants, because then that would create most likely a vacant seat at a meeting, and we don't want those vacancies. We need to have our board members in the seat at the meeting, and we're not going to ask someone to join us who does not have a vested interest in one way or another. Yes, Pastor?
I do struggle. I'm one of the people who have voiced a question on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggle with this in the fact that this is, in a lot of ways, to look at the history of the village. This is how the village started getting taken away from us and how we ended up getting thrown out of the village eventually. So I really struggle with this in the fact of that. But if the members decide that, yeah, 4 members at large is a good idea, I think it needs to be made very clear that none of those members at large can be officers on this board anymore. And so that as a protection.
You will find in the current bylaws that a member at large can be an officer on the board.
Yeah, I think that needs to change if that's the case. That's my opinion.
We have received the template from our lawyer. We're following their suggestions. That would have to go back. I don't know if you can limit your members at large. That would have to go back to the lawyer. I would find that odd if I were asked to be a member, but my intentions were questioned and I was not allowed to perform the duties that I might be able to offer. Being a member of the board is a service. I'm offering a service. If I didn't want to be a part of this board, why would I be? I don't know why you would want to limit the capabilities of up to 4 board members. And that is an up to. That doesn't mean we're out to get 4 members at large. This is a protection measure. You're all aware that even as today stands, we can't get a quorum. This is a protection measure for the board so that we have people in the seats who are caring people and want to help St. John's and the Dufford Terrace mission. Tim?
I was going to just say, too, I know a lot of people do have concerns about, what has happened in the village, in years past. The big difference is, and I don't know all that went on in the village, but the big difference is the village was able to sort of change their own bylaws and do what they had to do to exclude St. John's members. Any change to these bylaws or any business conducted over at Dufford, including, selling off the property, acquiring property, it all has to go through this congregation. So you're not gonna have an incident that happened at the village.
Tim, can you grab a mic from the, if you guys have comments or questions, people watching can't hear, so you need to go to the microphone. Sorry. Yeah.
All right. No, so what I was, you all heard me, but those at home, I understand the concerns, the board understands the concerns, of what happened to the village. I mean, you guys are dealing with we were dealing with the village here at church. We were also dealing with their headaches over at Dufford over the years. The difference is any change in bylaws, to the Dufford bylaws or, acquiring property, selling property, anything that's to do with Dufford, it's got to go through this congregation. And that, again, that includes the 4 at-large members. So it has to go through this congregation. The board they can run the day-to-day operations. But when it comes to major changes like that, it has to go through this congregation. So you're not going to have an incident, like what happened at the village. And again, the old bylaws protected this congregation. The new bylaws protect this congregation as well. So we don't have a problem like that. So.
And it was one of the things that we spoke to our attorney about, that we do not want anything contentious. We are not trying to work against the congregation. We are trying to protect ourselves if something were to happen within the congregation. We want to work with the congregation, and the congregation still has full vote on anything major that is done, like we are doing with the bylaws. We can't randomly pass new bylaws without your consent. Aaron?
Thanks, Beth. So I have 3 questions. As far as members at large, or actually any of the members of the board, do you currently have any conflict of interest or documentation that would help us understand other things that members might be involved in that could potentially, that's typically something that happens. Myself as a employee, I have to say whether or not I own stock of a competitor or something like that. So I was just curious if there's any thing that you guys need to document so that
The only
we're
thing
aware.
that we have is the legal portion in the back, where it talks about members' liabilities, and that is out of our hands. That's a legal part of the nonprofit template for bylaws. We have not added anything into those bylaws to address any conflict of interest.
So if you have any board member, is there anything that a board member needs to sign?
No.
Or
No. One of the things that we have changed, I don't know if this relates, but it brings to my mind that the old bylaws allowed for salaried directors. The new bylaws do not. The new bylaws state that directors will work for no compensation, no monetary compensation. So I don't know if that would help ease your mind on any conflict, because why would someone want to be on our board if for free?
Again, it's not necessarily that they would have ill intent, it's just to be transparent in what their job is, what church they belong to, just any sort of information about them that might be relevant.
One thing that the bylaws do add is that no Dufford Terrace resident can be on the board. Now that, and we did that, now that you're saying that, we did that because of a conflict of interest. We can't have one board member who thinks differently because they want to benefit themselves where they live. But we are happy to look at any other wording. I currently don't have any wording in the bylaws concerning a conflict of interest other than what was in the template provided to us.
Okay, I don't know about anybody else, but personally, at least, I think there should be general information that we should know about any at-large member.
If you or anyone would like to submit a concern, we'll take a look at it.
Okay, thank you. My second question is around voting at the annual meeting as it relates to the at-large members. So, for example, we're saying, the at-large members, the additional 3 that we're talking about adding, do members of St. John's get priority as far as voting? So we're saying that, we want to be able to have these extra people, but if, let's say, we have a ballot of 15, because I think that's kind of what we ran into this past year, could an at-large member displace a St. John's member? And is that our intent?
If St. John's members votes them in, yes.
Okay.
A member at large has no vote in St. John's if they're not a member, have not communed and contributed. So they could not vote themselves in. But if the members of the congregation vote in a member at large over a St. John's member, yes, they are able to do that.
Okay. And as a follow-up to that one, could we request then information about the at-large members at the time of the
as long as they're not nominated from the floor? I mean, If they're
Exactly.
nominated from the floor, we wouldn't have any ability to do that.
Right.
But if
Understand.
we know it ahead of time, then absolutely we would be happy to provide
Okay.
information.
Thank you. And then my third question was, again, I think around the quorum, not so much the number 50, but obviously I get what you're saying about protection and all of that, but the reality is that's a very difficult number to achieve. The congregation meeting doesn't have that high of a quorum. And not to say that the number there is correct either, but, the Dufford board abides by that quorum at their annual meeting because of how it's held.
Exactly.
So I'm just wondering why there isn't consistency between the two numbers.
The quorum applies to special meetings. So this is a special meeting.
Correct.
A special meeting must have a quorum of 50. An annual meeting is not stated as such. An annual meeting abides by the laws of St. John's. We did try to mimic the quorum language from the Constitution. We were advised against that.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
I have another question from the chat. Can family members of tenants be members at large, not the tenants themselves?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. Can family members of tenants be a member at large?
I don't see why not.
Okay, thank you.
One other thing, currently, the terms the terms in the old bylaws are a little bit different than what we've put for the new bylaws. Currently, an ordinary term for a director shall be 3 years, and that director can be re-elected for three-year terms, for 2 additional 3-year terms. At that point, after they have served for 3-year terms, of course, they have to get elected back on each time. But after they've served 3 terms, they do need to sit out for 1 year. As far as personnel goes, the board of directors in the new bylaws are able to hire employees. This pertains in particular to our janitorial. I'm sure you're aware that we share Joe with St. John's. We have put that in the bylaws so that we can hire him, and that is not a conflict. We are allowed to establish policies and procedures regarding salary, hours, and conditions for that position. Let's see. Then we have changed the fiscal year. Under the old bylaws, the fiscal year started on October 1st. Although that's what the bylaws have stated, that's not what has been happening. We generally run a January 1st through December 31st year, and we will put that officially in the bylaws now. In the bylaws currently, it talks about a corporate seal. Corporate seals are no longer used as legal guarantees, so while we still have the physical corporate seal, it's no longer going to be in the bylaws that it must be used. Those are the changes that we wanted to highlight for you. So we're open to more questions.
Of course, it's way too low for me. Okay, just a couple things. On the terms of elected officials, which you were just, directors, I'm sorry. That's 9 years. What's with the line at the end of that section 4.6? Current directors at the time of the adoption of these bylaws shall have the right to serve 3 additional 3-year terms after the expiration of their existing term. So you're telling me somebody that's been in there forever now gets 9 more years automatically?
If they are voted in. The congregation must vote them in. Every board of directors, every director has an expiration on their term, and they must be voted in again. So if the congregation agrees, yes, a member of the board who has been on the board for a number of years, with the start of the new bylaws, then starts a 9-year limit. One of the reasons we did that is because we have a lot of historical knowledge, and we have a lot of members who are intimately knowledgeable about the building, about the tenants, about St. John's, and what are required of a board member. And we wanted to protect ourselves. We don't want someone coming in who doesn't understand St. John's and or Dufford. So it was a protection. We have current members on the board who know construction. I don't know how many of you are aware that we are upgrading our apartments. We are putting new flooring in, we're putting new kitchens in, we're putting new bathtubs in. We've had, when the building was built, it had bathtubs. For our elderly population, many of them can't manage a bathtub. They either need a shower stall or at least a lower tub. So as we're able to, we are converting all of those to help our population, help our tenants. We do have a number of members on the board who are familiar with construction, who are able to do the construction for us or to advise us, and we don't want to lose that.
Okay, I'm hearing you give us a lot of answers to all the questions. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when we come in here to vote on this, if we have a problem with any one of these, we're not going to vote for this. And you're not attending to anybody's questions with, we'll look into that or we'll see anything else. It's just, this is the way it is. Because Pastor Young's comments, I agree with them 100% because of what I've seen happen over at the home. And I know Tim said that that can't happen here, but that doesn't mean it can't happen.
Well, it cannot
with the-
happen,
hold
it
on.
cannot happen
Don't
under
interrupt
your
me.
watch.
Don't interrupt me.
I'm sorry.
And especially the members at large, I do not agree with any of them being a director, president, vice president. That's the only two positions you have. Glowacki already does treasurer and secretary, is that correct?
Yes, as our designee, that's correct.
So now you're taking, there's a possibility of taking all St. John's members out of those positions.
No, there's only up to 4 of 15 members.
No.
Oh, the
President and
executive.
vice president. They
But again-
could be members at large.
That is true, you're correct. But again, nothing that Dufford does can be changed or move forward without the blessing of St. John's. Also,
Sure you
any-
can. You just
before-
said that the president and the vice president could be members at large. We're not
Yes.
voting on them to be president and vice president
No.
on your board.
the
Your board
members,
is voting for them.
exactly, the members of St. John's do not vote for president or vice president. The Dufford board votes for the Dufford president and vice president. But the members at large cannot be sitting on the board without the vote of the congregation.
Bob, I'll say this too.
Tim, could you step to the mic, please?
Now, I'll say this too, Bob. I mean, if you have 4 at large, you still have 8 St. John's members on that board. Plus, you have 12. Yeah, there's a total of 16, so
15.
you still have 12 St. John's members on that board. So they would have to elect at-large people as president and vice president. So it's not like at-large, voting at-large in to be president and vice president.
Also, I might add, the current standard, it's not in the old bylines or bylaws, but it is in the new bylaws. The current president of the board does not have a vote on the board unless it's to break a tie. So the president, while they're conducting the meetings, that's one less vote that person, or that the board has. So if a member at large is the president, there is not undue influence because at most, there would be 3 other members at large able to vote, which again is not by any means a majority of the board of directors.
Wait a minute. All of my pages are stuck together here. Okay. Well, the only other thing I had on here is, actually, I'm council president, and unfortunately, I would go to the meetings, but I have prior commitments on Tuesday also that I've been doing for years, so I can't come. But to me, to do that to future presidents, which this is supposed to be the highest office at this church, that you don't give them the right to vote, I think that's wrong. And I heard what you said, but you got plenty of people on this to get by that as far as I'm concerned. And when was the last time that we ever didn't have enough people on Dufford board? When has that happened, ever? That we need to bring this 4 people in here?
We can allow, I'm sorry, Marge? At the last meeting, the board was short people. We could not conduct business because we did not have enough board members. We had to call someone in because we did not have enough board members at our meeting to conduct business. And that is something that we cannot have. We have business things that have to be attended to at each meeting. We've got construction ongoing, we've got bills to pay. We must have a full complement that allows us, or at least a majority of our members at each meeting to allow us to conduct business. If the president of the council is not attending the meetings, that's one more body that is missing. And
I hear what you're saying. I'm just saying it's wrong to eliminate that person, okay?
I hear you, I hear you.
I don't agree with a lot of these things, and I would not vote on this. And I encourage everybody else here not to vote on this based on what I'm hearing here. So that's just my 2 cents.
And that is why we're having this conversation, so that
Yeah.
we can talk about this and you can tell us what you need. We need, but they're
I hear people
also,
telling you what we need, but you're not bending whatsoever. So
We-
why are we having this meeting? You're just explaining to us what's here. This is not a working meeting. You're telling us what you're going to do regardless.
no, we're offering you a new set of bylaws because the current set of bylaws are not manageable.
I understand that, but we're questioning what you have in the bylaws.
We were working off the template that was handed to us that is a
Doesn't matter. Never
501c3
mind. I'm done.
template.
Just really quickly on the bylaws, I'm not that tall. On the bylaws themselves, according to our current bylaws and future bylaws, Robert's Rules of Order, we would, as a congregation, get to adjust the bylaws as we see fit. So we could adjust one little thing. If you don't like something in there, we can actually strike that, and if we do that, we send it out, and if the lawyer says that that does not work, it goes against the law, then we have another meeting to readdress that. So that is exactly how Robert's Rules work. So it's not all or nothing on this. We don't throw it all out. I will tell you, I love what's in these bylaws from far and away. There's a lot of really good stuff. I think the people who worked on them, I think starting over with this template was a really good idea. And like I said, far and away, 90% of the stuff in here I'm all for. Just got questions on some other things, and we can adjust those things according to our current bylaws and these future bylaws according to Robert's Rules of Order. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Pastor. Again, we are here to be transparent. We are not trying to do anything that is contrary to the interests of St. John's or the interests of Dufford Terrace. Marge?
Okay, I'm going to try and remember everything I wanted to say. First, as a past president of church council and a member of Dufford, I was uncomfortable having the right to vote. I had voice, and I shared opinions and concerns, and let the board, who worked more closely with the residents, make their decisions. So I'm not opposed to having the president not have a vote. 2, the number at large is to fill the board. There is a congregation who can step forward, put their name on the ballot, and be voted in, and we don't need an at-large member. There is nothing wrong with having someone from the community come to our Dufford board meeting and work towards the betterment of the lives of the people that we serve. We are a community founded from this church. We are not this church. We are Dufford, and it is a little bit separate. We still vote for everything that happens at Dufford, but we manage it. And I think that, I say we because I'm on the board now and I was on the board before, but I think that they do a good job, and we should respect that. There is no one trying to put 4 members from the community or strangers onto this board and change things. We just want to make sure we have a full board. I think that was all I had, so thank you.
I do have another question from the chat, it's in reference to the removal and reinstatement on number 1.3. Can you explain the circumstances for which 1.3, I'm just making sure I get it right. that 1.3 would be used. I understand this section was in the original bylaws, but what would be the circumstance where you would have to remove a member?
We have never come up on that. We have never had to remove a member being a member of St. John's.
Right.
We have had an incident where we had to ask a member of the board to step off the board, but we have never had anything happen that asked a member of St. John's to be removed from St. John's. This is part and parcel to the template that we were given, and we just put our name in it, and that's how it stands. It's one of those things that is more or less required in the 501c3 corporate bylaw packet template.
So, okay, because this was sent in by, and so it'll take a second to get the, because you know, we're a couple second delay. Go
I
ahead,
can't,
Diane, I'll wait.
I don't have the legal knowledge to address that in particular, other than the fact that it's recommended within
So this was
the
recommended
template.
by Attorney Agresti when
Yes, it's in
when
the.
he sent you his bylaws.
It's in the
Okay.
template. It wasn't added by us.
Okay, I'll see if there's a further comment. Thanks.
Thank you. Diane? Just talk loud. It'll
Okay,
catch you.
can you hear me? The first thing I would like to say, just a little bit of reference to kind of what Beth's saying as to, look, we don't have a quorum of 50. I actually want to commend everybody that's sitting here, because generally, almost most Sundays, we don't have this many people at the service. So, of course, we have the Zoom and people watch it from home and so forth, but all of you sitting here, and a couple that may have had to leave, but there's a lot of you here today, I think, and that's commendable, and I thank you for coming, and I think that shows our spirit is in the right direction. So, that's very important, Beth.
Hear, hear.
Oh, okay, I mean, I know you were disappointed there weren't 50, but there truly are more here than often at a service. So, they're caring. Thank you. I don't know if we got the answer to an earlier question. How often in the past have there not been enough names to be on the board? I know, truthfully, Tim had
You mean
asked me if needed, would I do it? And I said,
You
oh,
mean
yes,
on the
I would.
ballot?
Yeah, I'm sorry, on the ballot. Because he had asked me, and I said, oh, I would. And then it turns out they didn't need me. You know, you had enough, which I felt happy about. That was fine. Right, at the very end. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, you'd said, I don't know if we're going to need you, but we might need you. And I'm like, well, okay. You know, and then I think, oh, my name's on there. So I was happy. That was good. So, I mean, actually, how often? Because to follow up with that, I know a lot of what you're saying is recommended by this attorney that perhaps you know, but we here don't really know. I don't know if he's giving you standard recommendations for things, but why do we have to go with 4 at large? Could we go with 2 and see where we are with that?
We could.
It may inspire more of us sitting here to say and step up and be on that board.
I agree. I think we could go with 2. That's not a problem. Just be aware that if there are not enough who agree to be on the ballot and to become board members, then it is up to the board to put people in that position until the next election, when there can be another person voted in. So yes, absolutely. We can reduce it to 2 people, to 2 members at large. But again, if we don't get the interest for the board and there isn't a full complement, then you leave it to your board to decide who will sit in that seat. If you as a member of the congregation want to control that seat, you have to provide the people to sit in those seats.
And that should be a very inspiring sentence to all of us, is what you just said.
Thank you.
I don't know if this is an odd request. Is there any way between now and a January meeting, because I am hanging on everything you're saying. It used to be, it is now, we're changing this, changing that. Is there somewhere where there could be a yellow, green, blue, whatever highlighted version of what's different?
No, because the guidelines are very different. We are more than happy to share the original guidelines with you, but they are so totally different. There are not, I mean, it would take hours to go through and say, okay, Article 1A corresponds to Article 3C in, one set of guidelines versus another bylaws. They are truly that different. If someone else would like to do that, by all means, you may do that. The bylaws are out there. I will make sure they are sent to each and every one of you again via the St. John's email, the listserv, and you will have both sets of bylaws at your disposal, and you're free to go through and see where each point is mentioned, one set versus another. But they truly are. I tried to do it. I started to do it. And it's overwhelming because they're so very different. The same topic under one article in the old bylaws can be split into 3 areas in the new bylaws. So if you want to sit and micromanage and pull a list together, I would be thrilled, because it would help us look at it. Help us see where there are changes that maybe we didn't catch because it was a template change. But no, we do not have that.
And then my last thing is just in my own confusion, and it sort of follows up Aaron a little. I'm trying to understand this. So if folks were nominated, the at-large folks, at that meeting, there would be no way of knowing anything at all about them before a vote was taken. I mean, we would be literally voting on 4, perhaps 2, if we can change that, or it's the desire to change it to 2. Which I hope encourage you to do.
If they are added to the ballot by the directors,
Well,
and
then we would
they're
know.
on the ballot, then we will provide a profile. We will provide a
Right,
short
I
bio.
understand, and that's good.
But if they are voted, or if they are nominated from the floor, we would not have the opportunity to provide anything other than what they might offer at that time.
So,
could you, was that the question already asked, that
I
could
I
we
believe
have
that's what
somebody
she
have
asked.
to give you a few words about themselves?
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah.
I would encourage those at large that wanted to be on and were put on the ballot prior to the annual meeting. I would encourage them to be here at the meeting so you could ask them in person, any question you might have. And if you have any concerns over anyone you don't know at all, I wouldn't vote for them. Just not vote. If it calls for 4 and there's 2 you don't know, then vote for 2.
It's good encouragement for all of us.
Yeah. And again, if someone's nominated from the floor, then you have the right to question them, question them at that moment. But if you don't feel uncomfortable with anyone on any ballot, don't vote for them.
okay, so I have a couple more. Oh, Diane, are you done?
My last thing is, do we get an opportunity to, what is the procedure, or is there an opportunity to change it from 4 to 2, if that would be the desire of, I don't know how many people have to
We are
express
happy
that.
to review all changes. Yes, Pastor?
Just Robert's rules, I'll let you repeat this to people out there. Robert's rules, you can make amendments to the bylaw once we actually start voting on the bylaw as a whole. So you can make amendments to it, we vote on the amendment, it either gets added or turned down according to the vote, and we will do that.
So what Pastor just said, for those watching, is that according to Robert's rules, once it comes down to the vote for the bylaws, we can make amendments to things that are written, correct? Okay.
Yes.
Couple questions still from the chat. The first thing is more of a suggestion that we re-examine that 1.3 to make sure it says removal of members from the board. I think that just needs, I think for that 1.3 clarification, every time it says removal of the members, it sounds like and reads like you're removing people from St. John's. When
That is what it reads. You're correct. And that
Well,
is, the Board of Dufford Terrace has no reason to try and remove members of the St. John's congregation. But
no-
that's, pardon me? I-
It says, 1.3 says, the Board of Directors of Dufford Terrace, by affirmative vote of 2/3 of all members of the board, may suspend or expel a member for cause. And all I'm asking for is clarification, remove a member from the board. I'm not saying,
No, 2/3 of all of the directors of the board may suspend or
Or expel
expel
a
a
member.
member for cause. The definition of a member is all confirmed members of Congregation of St. John's Lutheran Church. Confirmed membership is established by the rules and regulations
Right.
of the church. So I will find out about
Okay,
that. I
just
will
to-
find out if we can strike that
or revise it.
change it in light of the fact that St. John's members cannot be controlled by Dufford.
Correct.
I mean, they can't.
Thank you.
We would not assume that we can, but that was in the template
no, I
and we
understand.
left.
I'm just asking for, I'm reading the chat.
Okay, understood.
And then
We
my
will
sec-
definitely take a look at that.
And the second request was, could we please have a summary of the changes and the logic behind them, and the logic being from the attorney? So what Judy's asking for is a summary of the major changes that are gonna be done and why the attorney is encouraging us to make those changes. I hope I got that right, Judy.
What I presented at the very beginning of the meeting, we can make that public to you.
Okay, well, I'm just, like I said, I'm just sharing what she's typing, and we are a couple seconds behind, so.
Okay, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Roger?
I believe the intention of that.
Speak to the mic, please.
I believe the intention of that 131 removal is to removal a member, not of the congregation, but a member of the board of Dufford.
No,
Terrace.
that is addressed. That is addressed in the new bylaws.
Well, reading from these new bylaws, I think we ought to change that wording to specify that the board of directors may suspend or expel a member of the board. Because there was no intention to attempt to expel a member of the congregation. But Tim had an issue a couple of years ago with a member of the board because he had a conflict with some of the residents. And so he was asked to step down.
If you happen to have a current, a set of the bylaws that we are reviewing right now, if you look on page 10, Article 4.9, directors may be removed for cause by a majority vote of the Dufford Terrace Board of Directors. There is a clause for that. The directors can remove a director. I agree that we should probably delete this other, I believe, and I'm not justifying it, but I believe this has to do with a member of a corporation can be removed from a corporation. And if you think of that in a business sense, there could be reasons for your board to remove a member of your corporation, but within a nonprofit, especially a nonprofit related to a church, I do not believe this is applicable, and I will request clarification on that from the attorney. I agree with you. We should not have any say in any members of the congregation. Aaron?
Yeah, I was just gonna comment on that. So what we're saying is the members of St. John's are the corporation, and the board would have the opportunity to remove someone from the corporation, which only means that they would not be able to vote on anything related to Dufford in our annual meetings.
Oh, no,
So they're still a member of St. John's. They're just not a member of the Dufford Corporation, because they would have
well,
been
if you are a
removed
member of St. John's, you are a member of the corporation.
unless you are removed as per Article 1.3. That's what
Okay,
that
well then
states.
perhaps that's due to my misunderstanding of what it means.
Yeah, so maybe
so-
just clarification.
Okay,
I
I
don't know
will-
that necessarily needs to come out,
I understand what you're saying.
but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
that makes sense. That makes more sense than what I see. So yes, we will get clarification on Article 1.3. Anyone else? Bob, did you have something you wanted to say? Okay. We're not officially a meeting, we are a discussion, so we do not need a motion to adjourn. But does anyone suggest that we adjourn, or is there anyone who does want to ask anything else?
I would like to meet for a few minutes with members of the board who might be present.
The members of the board present, could you please stay for a few minutes longer, and we will have another chat. All of those, if you are no longer interested in hearing more about our bylaw change, you are free to leave.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks be to God.